ultimately, I want you guys to have a really good gut microbiome to help support your overall health. And why that's important is because if you do not, it can wreak havoc into literally every dimension of your health, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it, psychologically, everything. And so it's extremely important that we go a little bit beyond fat loss and talk about how we can improve how you feel, right? There's so many clients that I've worked with in the past, far beyond, like well before, I should say, I was focusing on whole health, and I was more so focused on fat loss and bodybuilding, that they would implement a fat loss protocol and, they would look amazing. But in the end, they still felt low energy. They still felt like their mental health was taking a toll, or that their stress was really high, or that they couldn't really digest certain foods very well and they'd get very bloated. And so, you know, I think that more years I've spent coaching so many women just added more to my experience of why are these things happening and how can I learn how to improve my own health on a deeper level, and then as a result help my clients. And I want to go over kind of how the digestive process works really quickly. And so, obviously, like when we consume food, we put it in our mouth, but that's where the digestion actually starts. It starts in your mouth. And so there are enzymes in your mouth that actually break down the food. That's why when you have bread, for example, the saliva acts as a way to help soften that food, break it down before it enters the esophagus. And then in the esophagus, it ends up going into the upper esophageal sphincter, which is where the bile and all of the digestive acid and enzymes end up breaking down food in the small intestine, then into the large intestine, and then obviously it gets defecated. But throughout that entire process, if you're not already chewing your food very slowly and thoroughly, and you're eating really quickly, that can really affect the way that you're able to then digest anything. So if you are very, let's say you've gotten your blood work done recently. I've had a couple clients send me their labs, and I'm no doctor by any means, but I love taking a look into your deeper health. And so if any of you guys ever want some secondary eyes or some feedback, again, I can't diagnose, but I could definitely help advocate for your health, or at least help you advocate for your health, so you can bring forth more information to your doctor and question them and stuff like that. But for some clients, they're very deficient in vitamin D and selenium and iodine and magnesium and B12. And a lot of the times, what would show up as exhaustion or feeling moody or tired, just that kind of stuff, comes down to a lot of vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And it's not that getting more of those vitamins and minerals is the answer. I think that a lot of us think that, oh, we're low in vitamin D, so we just got to take more of that and it'll fix the problem. But a lot of the times, unless your gut health is optimized, you can't absorb those nutrients. Your body just doesn't allow you to. So because there are so many there's your gut microbiome, the bacteria. When I say gut microbiome, I mean the ratio between good and bad bacteria in your gut is in dysbiosis, meaning there's more bad bacteria than good. If that's the case, then you might have certain things like SIBO, or a bacterial yeast overgrowth, which is like Candida, or you could have things like leaky gut or SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or you could have things like fatty liver disease, which typically is a result of having those three things: the SIBO, the bacterial yeast overgrowth, leaky gut. If I quickly want to go over some of the things that could really affect how you would develop poor gut health over the years. So the very first one is definitely stress. So eating quickly, and think about this: if you're in fight or flight all the time, trying to run out the door, get to work, take care of everyone else, and you kind of feed yourself last. And when you do feed yourself, maybe it's something that's just quick and easy and not very nutrient dense. What happens is your body's not focused on sending blood to the digestive system to help it actually work the way that it should. It's focused on running, or because your body doesn't really understand the difference between being late for work and being chased by a tiger. So you're really in this fight or flight state, and you can't digest food very well. And when you don't digest food well, then what happens over time is you have inflammation. And this inflammation can lead to autoimmune conditions like SIBO, like I mentioned. It could literally lead to several autoimmune conditions like multiple sclerosis, because literally all disease starts in your gut. All disease, every single one. And really cool fact here. Really cool fact. You might not know this. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comments. But at the time that you are born, what creates the bacterium, your unique gut microbiome, is dependent on the environmental conditions of literally everything around. So people who have C-section are at a higher risk of things like Crohn's disease, things like celiac disease, because they don't have the necessary bacteria in their gut microbiome to support uh, fighting off those kinds of diseases. And that's because some very, very, very important bacteria are in the vaginal birth canal. So if you're not being conceived through there, you're missing out on a lot of bacteria that could actually help you. Another one is the nurses that are in the room from the time that you're born. If they have certain bacteria that is good or bad, because this is the initial bacteria you're getting from the time you're born, it's always going to be there, and that is what you initially get. And so it's actually very cool because that will actually determine the quality of the life that you have as you grow older. And so those that have a C-section versus have a regular conventional birth through the birth canal have two different completely gut microbiomes. So people are really putting a lot of their energy into their gut health because it does have so many profound benefits of overall health and prevention of disease. One more fact, I think it's important for you guys all to see the consequences of our actions and how it can affect our overall health without you noticing. Like if you take a lot of antibiotics, what that's going to do is it's going to essentially try to fight out any viruses and bacteria in your gut. But what that also does is it's going to get rid of a lot of the bacteria that is present there that's actually beneficial, but as well as bacteria that is not beneficial. So a lot of the times we want to get rid of certain things like oral contraceptives like birth control or antibiotics or NSAIDs like Advil, Tylenol, things like this that will affect your gut microbiome. And obviously, I'm not telling you to just stop taking everything you're taking right now, but it's something to consider when talking to a doctor and them considering these things, like asking them questions such as like, is this, would you recommend taking this antibiotic versus a more natural approach if I currently have, I struggle with my mental health and, I know that having a strong gut microbiome is very important. I don't want my mental health getting worse because my gut microbiome is worse. Is there a better natural, recommendation I can take? Trying to become a marathon runner. A lot of marathon runners or long distance athletes, people that are doing intense exercise for a long period of time, or even working out like if you're working out like 7 days a week, that's a lot of exercise spanned over a long period of time. So when you're exercising that much, again, you're moving your blood from your gut, from your stomach to your extremities. And now that you're doing that, you have less digestion. The quality of your digestion isn't great. And now that's leading to worse off things. So I'm not saying don't exercise. I'm saying excess amounts of really anything isn't good for you. So awesome. So let's go over these 5R's really quick. Okay. Very first thing, obviously you guys know, as I've already been talking about, this very complex ecosystem, your gut health. And so we have to focus on it to improve our immunity, our mental well-being, our hormonal balance, and more. But unfortunately, it's not uncommon for the gut to be very imbalanced in this day and age. A lot of different issues because of the Western diet, the American diet, right? Not a lot of fiber, a lot of added sugar, and it's processed, right? So there's a lot of antibiotics in your food, right? In beef, that's why you want to try to find like organic chicken or organic beef, because if there's antibiotics and other preservatives in your meat, that can definitely affect your gut microbiome. We're going to be going over is a super common yet effective approach, and it starts with essentially focusing on the first R, which is remove. So we got to remove the things that could cause the underlying root problem, which is certain foods that cause inflammation. So the initial phase of the remove is to essentially improve the lining of the gut by getting rid of those inflammatory foods such as wheat, dairy, soy, corn, and other refined sugars. So it's very easy to go about doing that because it's very common in the Western diet. Wheat, for example, that's like you're gonna go for like cereal, pasta. There's nothing wrong with these foods, so I'm not telling you not to consume them. It works really well for a lot of us. But if you're experiencing, let's just say your number one goal in this program isn't fat loss right now. Your number one goal in this program isn't to necessarily build muscle. Right now, maybe your number one goal in this program is just to feel better. So if that's you, and you're not necessarily so much focused on fat loss, you just want to feel like you have less inflammation, less bloating, less headaches, migraines, mood swings, all this kind of stuff like poor sleep, itchy ears, dry hair, poor nails, skin, like all that kind of stuff, you'd probably be the perfect candidate to go for this protocol. And so removing, you're going to be focusing on having less of the standard American diet foods. Again, wheat, dairy, soy, corn, refined sugar. So ideally, whole foods. You could stick to things like rice. You could stick to things like potatoes. Those are great carb sources. Sourdough is great as well, mostly because it is fermented. So a lot of the negative aspects of wheat in that are broken down for you because it is fermented. So it's being almost like broken down for you prior to digestion. So that's another good source of carbohydrates. Sticking to like fruits and veggies, that's not a refined sugar, right? So it's fructose. Fructose is whole sugar. It's not refined, processed. So that would be better. Dairy. I'd go for non-dairy things like a very clean oat milk, soy milk, almond milk, things like that, or like even like a plant-based protein powder. Um, but that can be arguable as well because sometimes that can cause some issues with your gut for some people. So it's all trial and error. Everybody's different, right? So it's just something to consider removing. Now, to prevent any overwhelm, this isn't something that you would do all at once. You slowly remove certain grains and certain, you move certain corn, like you would get rid of like products that have corn in it and refined sugar. Like you'd slowly reduce these and see how you feel, right? Because then you can get to a better idea of what foods don't really work well for you. And good thing is you're tracking your food right now. So because you're tracking your food, you're able to kind of keep track of what isn't working for you versus a lot of people who don't track at all. Cool. So another thing is, what can I say? I would say if you enjoy certain fast foods, it's impossible to help people like myself. It's impossible for me to help people sustainably make changes when I'm telling them to give up the things that they enjoy most. So if you regularly enjoy fast food, instead of completely cutting it out, reducing the amount that you have is a much better approach than even cutting it out completely. Because what we don't want is binge eating, and what we don't want is for you to feel like complete crap. Because think about somebody going cold turkey with smoking. Like usually not a very successful. There's not much of a high success rate because they're going to have a big relapse, and then they're going to feel worse, and then they're just going to fall back into old behaviors. So strategically cutting back slowly is much better, and that should prevent a lot of your overwhelm. Another thing is non-food related things you can do. You know, uh, I think that it's extremely important to um, help you be able to start feeling better by having things like I think that like supporting your environment with positive things like getting yourself a bouquet of flowers or having a nice Epsom salt bath or going for a massage. These types of self-care things can help create less stress on the gut. And think when you're stressed, like I mentioned before, like and you're in this fight or flight, it's not going to be very good for your gut health. So giving yourself that care and having it scheduled in. Everybody's different. Everyone self-care for is different for everyone. If I got you a bouquet of flowers and you don't like flowers, like it's not going to help you, right? So you need to understand what is it that you like to do. Maybe it's painting, maybe it's going dancing. But a lot of women in midlife and a lot of women in general, they slowly stop focusing on themselves as they grow older and they start focusing on everyone else as a caregiver. But that typically results in some abandonment, and that is going to affect your stress levels eventually, even if you don't notice it right now. So ask yourself, what is it that would help you feel better, especially like if you feel quite negative towards yourself. That's going to affect your gut health as well. If you're always in a negative state mentally, you're going to be stressed. So highlighting your wins, celebrating your wins. This is why I tell you guys to do that. It's not because I'm just trying to be like this uppity guy, positive all the time. Like their life is hard sometimes, and I'm not trying to tell you to not feel your emotions, but focusing on wins more often than losses and negative, like focusing on positive over negative more often than not by asking yourself, what am I consuming on social media? Is my entire Facebook, Instagram feed all negative stuff? The news, is it about my friend who is like talking this negative thing and that negative thing? And we want to look at our mental diet. So that's extremely important. Another thing is removing inflammatory toxins. So alcohol, like I already said, antibiotics, birth control pills, synthetic drugs. All of these can act as toxins in your system. And that's going to damage your gut microbiome. And so unless it's absolutely necessary, we want to do our best to try to avoid those things, okay? Because it's going to eventually like deteriorate your gut lining, which is what's actually supporting the digestion. If your gut lining isn't there, you're going to have leaky gut. And that's when the toxins and the food particles and all these other things are going into your bloodstream immediately. It's passing through your gut and going right into your bloodstream, and that's what causes autoimmune diseases. Okay, but I think alcohol is the biggest one to consider there. Um, I think that resisting some of these changes, not uncommon at all, and I, in fact, expect it because it has been a habit for you to consume much of what is processed in the standard American diet. So sticking to whole foods, going right from processed food to whole food, like is such a hard change to make because it's been your entire life that you've mostly been relying maybe on processed food. So this is why we need to be very gracious to ourselves, and we need to do things slowly. And this is a lifelong process, right, of improving our health. And so we can't expect to just jump to where we were 100 years ago. Life was so different then when we only had whole foods available to us and not as much processed food. And I think that it's important to have balance, right? It's important to have balance. But for a lot of people, we over abuse the added sugars, the gluten in our diet from wheats, cereals, other processed foods that have a lot of wheat products in it, dairy products and stuff like that. And yeah, cool. So that is the remove part of the R. Okay, there's 5 R's. I'm going to try to speed things up a little bit more here. I just really want to give you guys this entire protocol so you can implement it on your own, and also like be able to come back to this training and kind of a refresher. So the next one, so we've covered the first R. The second one is replace. So the first one's remove. The second one is replace. So during this phase, you're going to focus on replacing digestion, and you're going to focus on replacing digestion so that you can support what is missing. Okay, by adding things that can appropriately break down and metabolize your food. So I like to think about this phase as like, stocking the digestive fire. We want to like help boost digestion now. So now that we've gotten rid of the things that could negatively impact your gut health, now we got to think about things that can add to the fire of this digestive system that's going to help utilize and absorb all the nutrients and the minerals and the vitamins that we need. So the very first thing is you want to support healthy hydrochloric acid levels in our stomach. We all have like a certain pH of acid, and so it's important that we optimize those levels. So the very first thing is how many times, this sounds so silly, but how many times should you chew a bite of food before swallowing? Okay, I'm going to give you guys that question first. So how many times do you think that you should chew before swallowing anything that you're consuming for optimal digestion? A little pop quiz here. Go to the chat, and let me know how many times do you think you should bite and chew on something before you swallow for optimal digestion. See it in the chat. I want to get you guys involved here. So Bonnie says 10, Cherie says 30. All right, appreciate you guys. So essentially you want to be doing it 20 to 30 times. And in this fast-paced world, like I mentioned before, people don't slow down enough. They just try to shovel their food down. That's why in Asia with chopsticks, the obesity rate, and when we look at the gut microbiome of those in Asia, it's a lot better than ours. Mostly because a lot of our food is, again, like the Western diet is full of low fiber foods, and because everything's processed. But it's usually because they're taking their time to eat because they're using chopsticks, and we have shovels for spoons, right? So that's a huge reminder. Chewing properly to prevent bloating. Obviously, burping from excess amounts of gas, which isn't good either. Stomach pain. It's going to help you savor that food longer as well. It's also going to help you get better at being more mindful while you're eating. Okay. The first reason why people struggle to slow down when they eat is they're not very mindful of the meal. They're not thinking about the flavor and the taste. You guys ever like eat a chocolate bar and you're like, that's so good. You're just trying to savor it. And it's just like, you're slowing down and you're enjoying it. Like that is how exactly we want to be with how we're consuming anything, is savoring the food and like enjoying it and being mindful of the flavors and the sensations and all that kind of stuff. The smell even. So yeah, that's the first step about replace. Okay, so remove, replace in aspects of our habit of being fast to then being slow. Okay, another thing is when you eat slower, the enzymes in your mouth can break down the food longer, so that as it's traveling down your digestive tract, it can be better digested to help support everything down below. So that's that. I would also say going for more walks after you're done eating for 5-10 minutes, because this is going to help with bowel motility, moving the food down the digestive tract. So replacing sedentary behavior after eating to walking more after you're done eating. I'm not saying run. That's going to make you feel like crap, but just like a slow-paced walk to help digestion. I'd also say if you have things like heartburn or acid reflux, burping, bloating, gas, nausea after eating, it's likely that you have obviously a stomach acid issue, and that is caused by having inadequate levels of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So things that you can add in, so things that we can use are digestive bitters. So just taking that like, in the morning before your breakfast can be really good, or even like before, like 3 to 5 minutes before each meal could be really good. That's just going to help be able to break down the food as well to help support that. Because like, let's say you're just telling me like, Christian, I have to eat my food quick. Like I have a 10-minute break. Okay, take some digestive bitters, and this is going to help address some of those the lack of enzymes that you have in your mouth to help break down that food. Okay, so digestive bitters are great. Um, you could also focus on herbs such as artichoke leaf, and angelica, ginger, cardamom, dandelion, and those are great teas to have. You know, uh, in the morning instead of coffee. Which reminds me, like excess amounts of coffee is going to add excess amount of acid, which is going to cause acid reflux as well. And too much acid reflux can cause a lot of other diseases, right? If we always have acid reflux, that's a common precursor of cancer, right? When we always have acid reflux. And taking medications for acid reflux, what that actually does is it reduces the acidity in your stomach, which isn't good either, because what happens when you have little to no acid in your stomach? You can't digest your food. And so what happens when you can't digest your food? You get leaky gut syndrome. And so leaky gut leads to autoimmune diseases. So limiting the amount of medication you use to help support acid reflux, very important. And just following some of these tips that I'm giving here today should help with the acid reflux as well. Um, Other supplements as well is let's say you have been taking, let's say you have spent a lot of time in your life taking antibiotics and acid reflux medication and heartburn medications and stuff like that. You can use things like raw apple cider vinegar to a meal or in your water. And you could also have, um, I think that it's really important that protein, this is a cool one, protein actually helps support the balance of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So meals containing high amounts of protein is going to help support that digestion as well. Um, for those of you that struggle with digesting protein, you can take like bromelain. Bromelain helps, like pineapple has bromelain. That's why they say that when you have pineapple with like red meats and stuff like that, it can actually help the digestion of that, and that way you're not so like gassy and bloated and all that from having a lot of protein. So bromelain is a great supplement to take if you struggle with digesting protein. Highly recommend that. But that's pretty much replace. Okay, that is replace. Now we're going to be talking about reinoculate. Okay, the third R is reinoculate. So this phase includes adding in quality probiotics or supplements to help populate, to increase the good bacteria in your gut, the beneficial bacteria, to support intestinal function, intestinal barrier function. So a probiotic essentially is just a living organism that can essentially help break down the food. So um, the major probiotics available that you can get today are things like lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, soil-based bacteria, and spore-forming bacteria. And those are things in foods like yogurt that have active cultures, very aged cheese. So we never want to go for like super processed um, like soft cheeses like Kraft singles cheese. We want things like a very old aged cheddar. Fermented vegetables like sauerkraut or cabbage. I think that's the same thing, Christian. Anyways, anything that's fermented as a vegetable, um, those have been found to improve the good bacteria in your gut. Okay, so those are probiotics. Those are forms of probiotics. Kimchi is another one. Yeah, it's also recommended that you start adding in more fermented foods to your diet slowly, because if you are doing it so quickly, you might like right away start to notice that you actually have like a tolerance to certain things. So I would work up to about like 1 tablespoon of sauerkraut a day, or 1 tablespoon of like a kimchi, or my favorite is just sourdough. I love sourdough for that reason, that it's got a lot of good bacteria, good probiotics and stuff like that from the fermentation. Cool. So here's the reason why I want you guys to like do it slowly though, because here's the thing: is that a lot of people can get allergy-like symptoms from having too much of this right away, and that's because certain foods are high in foods that have certain foods are high in histamines. So histamines are, a lot of people can be histamine intolerant. And so you would notice this by getting hives or more headaches or sneezing as common reactions to having more probiotics. So, it's very important to stay aware of that as you have a little bit more. And it's a small percentage of people that are histamine intolerant, but it's something to consider. Another aspect of the reinoculate phase that's overlooked is prebiotics. So prebiotics are essentially the foods that help continue to feed that bacteria. So the probiotics are the bacteria. The prebiotics are what feed that bacteria. And so I think it's really important to start focusing on foods that are high in fiber because fiber is prebiotics, and essentially you want to be having things like anything like fiber, like raspberries, like 1 cup of raspberries, or sorry, 100 grams of raspberries has 10 grams of fiber. Great prebiotic. You could think about things like flaxseed. You could think about things like apples and vegetables, and these have a lot of fiber to help you be able to digest food and to be able to feed the probiotics, the good bacteria in your gut. Okay, so that's very important. Um, I think it's also I think it's also very important to note that yes, you can take supplements for this, but the thing is that if you're getting most of your fiber from gummies or other supplements, it's not going to have all the same benefits. For example, fiber is really good at keeping you full. It's really good at stabilizing blood sugar. But if you're just getting it in the powdered form, just getting prebiotics and fiber supplements and stuff like that, it's not going to have the same effect. It's really just to help you get what you're not getting already from your diet. So that goes to show that diet's always number one. So having things like lentils, fruits, vegetables, and other grains that are high in fiber, very important. Okay, and that's pretty much it with the reinoculate phase, which is focusing on probiotics and prebiotics to help support that good bacteria. Okay, then we have repair. This is huge. By the way, when you're incorporating this framework, you're going one step at a time. So in that remove phase, you're probably going to spend a couple weeks here, 4 to 6 weeks, removing things slowly, 1 week at a time. Starting with the grains, then corn products and stuff like that, then the dairy, so on and so forth, the soy products, all that stuff. And then from 1 week to the next. After that, like let's say you did 4 to 6 weeks in the replace, then you do reinoculate immediately after that, and then you're doing the repair almost at the exact same time. So this phase involves introducing foods, herbs, and supplements known for soothing and repairing the gut. You guys have likely heard me talk about glutamine. Glutamine is a great supplement to help repair the gut lining. If you've had if you've been exposed to a lot of antibiotics and NSAIDs, and maybe you've been let's say you've been to the hospital for surgery quite a few times in your life. You might need to really focus on repairing the gut lining if you've had a lot of bloating, gas, digestive problems over the years. So yeah, but here's a few things. So very first thing that I recommend, bone broth. So this is a super easy to digest, nutrient dense kind of food that's going to be able to help with collagen, which is going to improve your gut lining and your entire gut microbiome. And you can use this in your rice. So when you're boiling your rice, just add a little bit of broth, right? You could do this with your vegetables. Boil your vegetables in a really good broth. Broth is considered a digestive aid. It's going to support and rebuild the gut due to the healing action of the gelatin that's inside of it as well. Gelatin contains glutamic acid, an amino acid that's known for helping to maintain and seal the intestinal barrier. So that's going to help you prevent autoimmune diseases and other diseases in general. Because again, all disease starts in the gut. Okay. The best way to ensure the quality of the bone broth that you get is by either making it at home or ordering it from a trusted provider. And if you are a vegan, for example, or a vegetarian, and you want to skip using animal bones, it's just as easy and satisfying to make bone broth using vegetables, ginger, turmeric, mushrooms, and or seaweed, because they have a lot of the same properties in them. Okay, but I still think that it would be best to use a bone broth if you can. Yeah. What else can I say about that? I would say bone broth isn't the only place that you can receive benefits from gelatin. You can also use a collagen hydrolysate, which is a more processed version of gelatin that can be taken as a supplement, and it's really easily dissolved in powdered form using water, or like cold beverages and stuff like that. Another gut repairing option is to use glutamine, like I mentioned. So you can add that in with your creatine. You guys know that I'm a big fan of creatine. Creatine is there's not a lot of flavor to it. There's no flavor at all, actually, and it's going to help repair your muscles, keep you from being sore. It's going to help. It also helps with your cognitive health as well, creatine. But glutamine and creatine together can be taken at the same time, and they are both flavorless, so it kind of works really well. And so you just mix them together and take them 5 grams each, and that's it. So you want to take 5 grams of glutamine, and that should really help your gut lining as well. It's also known, I would say, that if you have already a pre-existing liver or kidney disease, which I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys don't here, then I would first bring it up to your healthcare provider first before supplementing with it, because it might not be free. So that's what I'd say. Another one is you can use aloe vera juice is awesome. zinc, carnosine, and turmeric. Great. So I'm just going to quickly go over those three things: the aloe, and the other two. So essentially, purified aloe vera juice from the inner leaf is well known for gut soothing. It's an antioxidant, and it's got antibacterial properties. So I think that being able to take that, because it's so available, like it's so widely available, you can find it like anywhere, is so good, because it contains latex, a form of latex anyways, and it's recommended that you would take that to help improve the gut lining. But if you have, a latex allergy, just kind of stay away from that. Okay. And then zinc is a nutrient that's essential for repairing damaged cells that line the intestines. L-carnosine is both an amino acid and powerful antioxidant that protects like your organs in general from stress. And then when it's combined in a supplement, these two together, both zinc and carnosine, have extremely big benefits on the effect of your gut health. So we've talked about bone broth. We talked about boiling your food in that. We talked about using you can use aloe vera, you can use zinc and L-carnosine. There's also one that, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, but quercetin. It's a flavonoid that's found abundantly in onions, apples, and leafy greens. These foods are going to be super helpful with leaky gut, and it's going to help prevent allergies and pain that people would have if you have like a histamine intolerance. Okay, so if you do have histamine intolerance, but you don't know it, having quercetin that comes from onions and green apples and leafy greens can really help that. Okay, finally, very last one, turmeric. Okay, I know that you guys know turmeric, huge. So turmeric is an active ingredient in the active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin, and it's an anti-inflammatory compound. And essentially, I mean, you can find it anywhere. Like, it's super cheap, and it's pretty much all the same stuff. So you just get it from any grocery store, and it's absorbed really easily by the body without, it's digested easier if you have it with black pepper and some sort of dietary fat. So you're going to want to have this in like a meal, right? So if you're going to have rice, one of my favorite ways to have turmeric is you're going to go rice with the bone broth as preference, and then turmeric. So then, your rice is a little yellow. That's why you notice when you go to like Chinese places or Asian food cuisines and the rice is yellow, it's typically because of the turmeric that they add to it, which is actually really good to help reduce the inflammation. But it's just not as it doesn't really digest as well, and the turmeric isn't really absorbed very well if you're not having it with a dietary fat like avocado or something like that, or olive oil, and black pepper. So highly recommend pairing your turmeric with a dietary fat and some black pepper. You're going to absorb it much better. Okay, and then as a result, you'll have less inflammation in your gut and everywhere else. Okay, that's a huge one. I mean, aside from that, you can take vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, licorice, marshmallow root. These are all really extremely helpful when it comes to repairing your gut. Okay, this is the very last R. Okay, the very last R. So we've gone through remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, and then last but not least is rebalance. So this phase is going to focus on factors off the plate, outside of your food, that support your gut health and overall healing. So the very first thing is once you've gone through those first 4 phases and you've taken your time, this is like a 6 to 8 month kind of thing, right? Because we got to take our time to stabilize our gut health. What you're going to start focusing on doing is right here. Got a couple things here. The very first thing is you are going to start focusing on a little bit more of the multiple dimensions of your health. Remember that Circle of Life PDF that I sent you guys? So the Circle of Life PDF talks about all areas of your health: joy, finances, relationships, so on and so forth. I'm going to leave the chart in the replay of the video. It's going to show file, and you can click on the Circle of Life PDF, but I'll also leave it in the group tonight for you guys to take a look at. But if you're only focusing on your fitness, for example, you just want to look like this jacked person, but you're only focusing on like fat loss, and you're not necessarily focusing on food quality, and you're not really trying to focus on the other areas of your life that are stressing you out, like your finances. Let's say you're like abandoning that aspect of your health, because your health is multi-dimensional, and if your finances are stressing you out, it's going to affect your overall health, right? So let's say, and like your social life is another one. Let's say your social life is just non-existent and that's affecting your overall health. It would. We're social beings after all, right? So if you're not having balance in all areas of your life, this is going to affect every other phase before this. See, if you are constantly, if your environment is very toxic, you're constantly using plastics and, in everything that you consume, and you are exposed to a lot of other chemicals, like, flame retardants, like biphenyls, and PCBs, and um, these kind of things, like BPA. You guys are probably familiar with BPA, right? Going for BPA free things, preferably going for glass over like plastic. This is why when I go for coffee, I make sure that the cup isn't lined with plastic, because hot water and plastic, I mean, what do you think, right? Like, there's going to be plastic in your drink. This in excess over time, like, just that one, if you're focused on the environmental factor of your life, you know that your environment could be a little less toxic in all circumstances, whether it be it being high stress from a certain person you live with, like, that is going to affect how well your gut microbiome is due to the stress of it. And so it's like, that's, you guys are already in a good place to work on these things, because I talk about it a lot. I talk about your environment. I talk about getting social. I talk about, detoxifying, your digital screen time, like getting off of Facebook, Instagram, when it's not necessary. I talk about these things because I know that anything like that in excess is going to negatively impact your gut microbiome. And so that is just something to stay mindful in that rebalance phase in the end. It kind of ties everything all together to just the basics of your health, because it is more than looking a certain way. Again, like I said in the beginning, this is all about how you feel. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together an entire PDF where you guys will have access to this good gut health protocol, and feel free to focus on one phase at a time. But I think that unless you're actually having digestive issues right now, and let's just say your mental health, no matter, like, if you just have always struggled with your mental health, I think it's a great idea to focus on being in that health and wellness phase before fat loss, to focus on this kind of stuff before you get into fat loss, because stress might just be the very thing that stops you from actually wanting to work on your health in the first place. Because more often than not, you have anxiety and depression, and it makes it very hard for you to want to do the things you need to do. And that's why gut health is the very first place a lot of people are starting these days with their health. It's not an excuse to say you can't work out and exercise and stuff like that, but we got to give ourselves some compassion. Like, if you have been somebody that's taken antibiotics a lot, and you have been taking NSAIDs like Tylenol and Advil, and you have been exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, and you've been in and out of the hospital, and you've had a lot of surgeries, like, these are things that you need to consider coming back to your gut health so that everything else in your life is thriving. So I hope that this was really helpful, beneficial, working through those 5 phases of the remove, the replace, the reinoculate, repair, rebalance, so that you guys can soothe inflammation in the gut and improve the integrity of your gut barrier, and to improve digestion and nutrient absorption. That way you can get the most out of the things that you're actually eating, and so that you can have really good health. I hope that that was helpful. Okay, sweet. Does anybody have any questions on this stuff? Somebody said, "Dang, I feel screwed." LOL. GERD, NASH, IBS, diabetes, and the thing is that, like, I think that I hold off on a lot of these trainings because I find that they can be overwhelming for people, because focus is everything. If you're focused on fat loss right now, continue to focus on fat loss. And then after fat loss, this is why I have my program in phases. The first phase is the health and wellness phase. The first phase is focused not on fat loss, it's about re-energizing yourself, improving your relationship with food, improving the quality of the food that you choose to consume so that you can feel better. Like, that's the health and wellness phase that for some people might last 4 to 12 weeks. And then we have the fat loss phase after somebody has gone through that health and wellness phase. And that health and wellness phase, so that fat loss phase might last 6 to 24 to 52 weeks, depending on how much weight you have to lose. And in that phase, we're not focused primarily on, like, this protocol at all. Oops, why am I blurry? Because if you're focused on this protocol, you're wanting to nourish yourself. And I'll be honest, in fat loss, like, you are going to improve your health as a result of losing weight, which is going to help, Jill, your diabetes. Because diabetes is when your blood sugar is really high all the time, and your body can't really take care of that. So you need to start taking, like, insulin and stuff like that. And so you have to take medications that help support your blood sugar balance and your insulin levels. And when you lose body fat, then your body's able to you can come into some sort of remission, and your body can regulate its blood sugar better because you have more muscle and you have less body fat that's contributing to unstable blood sugar levels. So like, in fat loss, you can definitely, like, improve your health, but it's really hard to, like, improve your gut microbiome because you're actually not giving yourself that much nutrients. Why? Because you're on a diet. You're cutting out a decent amount of calories. So like if you're somebody that has 15, 20 pounds to lose and you're so used to eating 15 to 1700 calories a day, and then at the end of your fat loss phase, you're eating 1100 calories and you're down 15, 20 pounds, like you're not going to get that much nutrients, vitamins, minerals, eating only 1100 calories. So if you're so used to eating so low calorie all the time, like your gut microbiome is definitely compromised at this point because you haven't had that much nutrients. But that's for now, that's okay because you're not focused on your gut microbiome. You're not focused on your gut health. You're focused on fat loss. And once you get that done, then you can start focusing on maybe implementing this protocol to improve your health even further, right? There's multiple dimensions of your health. Fat loss and weight management is just one of it. Cherie says, can I sip on vinegar? I love it. Red wine is my favorite, but I will sip on apple cider vinegar. I'd say sipping on those kinds of things can be really bad for the enamel on your teeth. I'd say it's much better to just have it like in a small amount in your food. So apple cider vinegar, like even a tablespoon every single day can be quite harsh on in your mouth for your oral health. It takes away like a lot of the enzymes and the bacteria you need because it's so acidic. So I'd say like taking it in capsule form would be better so that it can bypass your mouth and like go right into your gut to help the digestion, to help with the acidity. So I wouldn't recommend sipping on it. No. Somebody else said, is it possible to get sick from having a lot of protein? Like more protein than we're used to? I'd say like protein, in the beginning, most people underconsume protein. So as soon as they start consuming anything more than 100 grams, for most people, they notice that they're full, they feel quite bloated. So again, like I said, supplementing with like bromelain or a digestive enzyme can definitely help that. I'd also say like when you have protein, make sure there's some good fiber because that's also going to help the digestion of the protein itself. So if you're just having like, let's just say I'm just sitting here and I just eat a raw steak, but there's no fiber, no carbs, right? What's going to happen is that protein isn't going to have anything to help it digest because there's no fiber to help break it down. And now you have a harder time breaking down protein because fiber's job is to help improve digestion, right? So that is my recommendation for you. I'd also say like chewing, right? Like I said, if you chew 20 to 30 times, you're giving your mouth and the enzymes that are there time to break down that food before it goes down. But if you're just taking 1 or 2 bites of whatever you're eating and then going down, it has to work that much harder in your digestive tract to break down that food. So if you're feeling a little bit sick, bloated from the amount of protein you're getting, remember, protein's typically hard to chew, right? I mean, like you think about eating a steak, you're sitting there chewing it, and maybe you get bored of chewing, and then you swallow, but that's not going to help digestion. So really slowing down. Having ground beef is a good idea. That's why I love ground beef. It's kind of already broken down for me. It helps that much more with the process of digestion over a steak. That's just one example of choosing foods that might help you a little bit more with digestion. I'd also say like maybe the protein powder that you're taking, the dairy inside of it might be causing a little bit of like problems with your digestion. So one person's food is another person's poison. Choose something that feels right for you. I've had clients switch from dairy products to plant-based protein, and clients go from plant-based protein to dairy protein, and it affects them differently. I missed what you said about bromelain. How should I take it? So bromelain is present in a lot of fruit, primarily pineapple. But if I'm looking at bromelain here, bromelain-rich sources. If I search up bromelain-rich sources, it says pineapple juice, pineapple stem. It helps reduce swelling. It also says, bromelain-rich foods would be in kiwi as well, papaya. Make a smoothie with this kind of stuff, right? You can also take it in a supplement if you don't really quite feel like having pineapple or ginger or kiwi. Sauerkraut has it as well. Yogurt, miso, like the soup, kefir. These foods all have bromelain, okay? Yeah. And they don't all necessarily have bromelain. They have an enzyme similar to it, which is a proteolytic enzyme. And proteolytic enzymes sometimes contain bromelain, but they all improve digestion. So, but pineapple is like that main source of bromelain. And if you can't get it from that, just take a supplement. Bromelain is a supplement as well. Bromelain supplement. Yeah. So I think each serving has 500 milligrams of bromelain. And see, turmeric and bromelain, you can find them together in supplements a lot because they help reduce inflammation and improve digestion. So you'll see them kind of paired together, and that's good too. Cool. That's everything, guys. It was a long one. Usually we only do 5 to 10 minute trainings during the Monday, Friday live streams, but I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to bring you guys even more resources to help you improve your gut health in the simplest way possible. This is just a more in-depth one because I didn't want to give you a little. On Wednesday, I will give you guys the rest of the PDF. That way you can take it home with you guys. So make sure to come to the Wednesday call. It's at 8 p.m. It's late at 8 p.m. because I know that more people than not are available later in the evening when they're not at work or when they don't have all these events and stuff. So if you can't come to the Wednesday though, I'll just leave it in the replay. What I'm going to do tonight is upload the past like 3 or 4 replays that I haven't put into the community. So that's that. And then I also have like, because the form is so new, some people had some issues submitting it. So I do have a couple check-ins that I still need to get done for those of you that haven't received it. So I am going to do that right now as well. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys are waiting for that, now you know that you're going to get it. So peace and love, ladies. Hopefully you got value.